Next up on deck, actually next up is, guys, I have to say I am extremely happy to say that we have 3 out of the 4 largest sanctioning bodies back in the fold with the ABC. They haven't been combined here together in probably 8, 9, 10 years. So with that said, I want to welcome the WBO, John Duggan, and IBF, Daryl Peoples, to the mic.
Thanks for allowing us to the opportunity to address all of you. As Mike said, and as most of you know, most of us are fixtures here at the ABC convention. We've been here for many years. A lot of you we know, a lot of you we don't know. Times have gotten better as far as the relationship between the ABC and the sanctioning organizations, in part due to us having familiarity with most of you and working in your jurisdictions. One of the things that I want to reiterate, and is most important to us, is we're not adversaries. We have a regulatory function very similar to yours. When we have sanctioned events in your jurisdictions, we are guests in your house, and we want to work with you cooperatively. We do have different functions, the assignment of officials, but we're here to regulate our sanctioned events. We're not here to try and impress upon you how you're supposed to do your business. The exact opposite is true. With the IBF, our rules state clearly that if there is a disagreement with IBF rules and local rules, we will follow the local rules. It's your jurisdictions. The only things that we will insist upon is the bout be conducted under the unified rules. So we're on the same page more often than we're not. John Duggan is with me, who is the vice president of the WBO. I also have Lindsay Tucker, who is our championships chairman, who you deal with far more often than you deal with me. And I have Richard DeCure, who is on the executive board of the WBO. We all got together, well, John and I, we all got together and we figured we'd combine this into one, because as far as sanctioning bodies go, we have the same information to present, and Mike's trying to get you out by 2:30. So with that, I'm going to ask John to make a few comments. At the end of this, we'll open up the floor to any questions that you may have of us. And again, thank you for welcoming us. This is a transitional year for the ABC, and we wish you guys the best of luck. Ask any questions that you want to ask, and remember, we're in this together. We're not your adversaries. We're here to work together. Okay, John?
Thank you, Daryl. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Duggan with the WBO, and first I'd like to congratulate you all on the occasion of your 28th conference, the 2016 convention of the ABC. Your Kentucky commissioner this morning mentioned something that points to one of the most important points of tangential between a sanctioning body and a commission under the American system, and that is that both sanctioning bodies and commissions are not engaged in the business of boxing. We don't sell anything, as you don't sell anything. We perform a service to boxing, and I've had the privilege of participating in ABC-administered events around the world and also in the United States, and I have to observe that the professionalism and the integrity and the competence of the ABC affiliates are not exceeded anywhere in the world. Now, boxing is a world sport, and we did a quick tabulation of the world champions. Of the 68 world champions, 11 or 16% are Americans. 14 are from UK. 9 are from Mexico. There are 21 countries in the world that have incumbent world champions. And, you know, that's the perspective that I think would be helpful for you to understand what we are. both the WBO, the IBF, the WBC, and the WBA are international, not-for-profit, non-governmental organizations. We do not administer boxing matches. Our host commissions do, whether it's an ABC member or a member overseas. Our membership are the national commissions of the countries that are engaged in professional boxing. And prior to the Muhammad Ali Act, American commissions were members of the sanctioning bodies as well, but that act, divided that, and so American commissions no longer directly participate in the sanctioning bodies. However, we do relate in the same fashion that we do to our members, in that the member nation or the host commission conducts the boxing event. The sanctioning body has really only two functions. We rate boxers and sanction championships. So when an event is conducted in your jurisdiction, there is no overlap of jurisdiction between the WBO, the IBF, or you. All we do is supervise the award of our championship. Everything relating to the conduct of the event is conducted by the host commission in the same way it is for any other type of event. In America, we have basically governmental commissions run by state agencies. Overseas, there's three types of national commissions. The most common one and the oldest of the international commissions are generally not-for-profit trusts that have been established within a country, such as the British Boxing Board of Control or the BDB in Germany. These trusts are generally, they select trustees who are recognized as esteemed within the boxing community, and they conduct the regulation of boxing according to a charter, for instance, from the Crown in England or from the government of Germany. The second type of regulation is the governmental model, such as in the United States or Mexico or the Philippines. And the third type is the unregulated. Surprisingly, there's quite a few countries in the world that have no boxing regulations whatsoever. In those instances, if a promoter chooses to conduct a championship there, they sometimes seek to engage a commissioner to come and conduct the event for them. Surprisingly, China is one of those. They don't have a national commission. They have voluntary private commissions that a promoter can relate with, and the government has no licensing or regulation, even though it's a communist country. Basically, sanctioning bodies and ABC associates and affiliates share many values. The first is that we both have as our purpose the promotion and enhancement of the integrity and success of the sport of professional boxing worldwide. Secondly, we seek to promote uniform rules. The WBO and the IBF, WBA and the WBC have all adopted the ABC uniform rules worldwide for all of our activities. And finally, we support the rules, standards, and practices that maximize the health and benefit to our competitors. Some certain initiatives for cooperation. We had some brief discussions with Mike Mazzulli that the ABC may be offering or organizing associate memberships for international commissions. And, we've discussed that with Mike and also with some of the international commissions, and they're very interested in that. They think it would be a good thing. They, would have the resources and interest to attend your convention, perhaps on a non-voting basis or however you would do it. And, these conventions would continue to be a forum for cooperation and exchange of best practices around the world. We also support ring training. We have tried to establish ABC certification as a minimal qualification for all of our ring officials worldwide. Part of that suggests, and that's why we want to have ABC training at all of our conventions, because obviously we can't ask officials around the world to have ABC certification if we don't offer it at our convention. So the ABC has cooperated for the last several years, and we've had judges and referee training at our convention with ABC certification. And finally, we've adopted the uniform rules. Do you have any comments, questions, or anything that you'd like to discuss about sanctioning organizations? Well, one thing that I would like to say is that worldwide, probably boxing has never been a larger sport. A lot of people perceive that it's down in the United States because it's very difficult to compete with American professional sports for marketing and publicity. But probably boxing has never been as popular or as successful in Europe, Asia, South America, or the Caribbean as it is right now. We recently have had great encouragement that professional boxing is becoming very interesting and popular in the two largest populations in the world, China and India. We've been engaged in China since 2007. They have had a great deal of success in establishing series of professional boxing in Macau especially, but they're also starting to have them in mainland China as well. And one of the biggest barriers they have is that they do not have any tradition of paying for tickets. The people of China expect to get a ticket comped to them, and it makes it very difficult for promoters. The Macau events kind of follow the casino model, as in Las Vegas, where a lot of the tickets are supplied by the casino to their frequent gamblers. And that has been a great draw in Macau, as it is in Las Vegas and several other cities where it impacts and encourages the hosts' businesses as a feature for their people. We recently did an event in India, and I'm encouraged that India, although they don't have a long tradition of boxing, has had a very successful rise in amateur boxing. They've had 2 medalists at the last several Olympics, and a boxer, a guy named Virjender Singh, was voted as the most popular sports figure in India. More than the cricket guys or the other sports that are immensely more visible and more popular in India. And he had his India debut in June of 2016. They had a very successful event. They had 7,000 paid attendants and about 2.1 million pay-per-view sales in India, of all places. So we're encouraged that they are accepting and adopting the professional model of boxing. They're not going to team boxing or some extension of their Olympic team in both India and China. So, the model of boxing that we know and are used to is succeeding and thriving around the world. So, yes, sir.
For all the gentlemen up there, and this is going to sound like an accusatory question. I promise you it's not. I'm seeking knowledge, and I'm asking this from an MMA perspective. So when you go to a nation that doesn't have any sort of regulatory body, you cited China, for instance.
Right.
If fighters are under ABC suspension and any of those third-party countries that don't have not a sanctioning body but a regulatory body, how is that situation dealt with? And the reason I ask from an MMA perspective, there are a lot of countries, for instance, Great Britain, there's no MMA equivalent to that.
That has never come up in our experience. We've never had a boxer because primarily the promoter that's doing most of the major events in China is Top Rank, and they have pretty high standards. They are not bringing unqualified boxers. They can't sell them. They have a brand to maintain. And I think they're concerned about liability, and I think they're also concerned about their brand. How would it be handled? I mean, there would be no law against it. A boxer under American suspension right now can box in Europe or South America or Africa if they choose to. The commission there can respect the suspension within their own discretion. I don't know if they do or if they always would. But a boxer under suspension would basically not be within our interest because he wouldn't be fighting for a world championship or a regional championship. Yes?
And it's a little different. As far as IBF titles and eliminators, it's explicitly in our rules that if you're on suspension, among some other things, you're unavailable. So you can't participate in an IBF sanctioned contest if you're under suspension.
So, and I'm not casting aspersions on Germany, but for instance, hypothetically, Germany, would they allow a fighter to fight if they were under ABC suspension?
It depends. They should not. That's just my opinion, because I think that suspension should be honored globally.
Right.
You guys aren't putting someone on suspension for no reason. However, as in some other countries, there's 3 professional boxing commissions in Germany. So it gets a little convoluted, and that's where we need to step up to the plate and deal with it accordingly.
Everybody, what's your personal opinion on that? Again, I'm asking, seeking knowledge from the MMA perspective, because you guys have a lot more experience on this.
Our position as far as multiple
As far as
commissions,
suspended fighters from the ABC fighting outside of the jurisdiction of the ABC.
I am against it.
Is that?
And
Yeah.
I guess that John would echo
Yeah, we certainly
the same
would.
sentiment.
It's a slippery slope because
The,
we're not the
the-
IOC or
The
FIFA.
medical, it depends. I think the attitude of the overseas commissions might depend on what the resident of the boxer was. In other words, if a boxer from Colombia was on suspension in America, and he passed his physical and had his requisite documentation, they might take a different attitude than if an American boxer was on suspension in America. I have to say I don't know enough about MMA to comment on it. You know, I respect it as a sport, and
No, I'm just curious
but
from
I
your
don't know
boxing perspective.
How and I'm not
Right.
totally sure how MMA is structured, because you kind of have a unified business with, you know, the UFC and the boxers all working for one another, and it's a little different than our model. So, and frankly, there isn't as much MMA overseas. I don't know how it's penetrating or how successful that is, but we just don't encounter it as much as we do in America, where it's very popular.
That's great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate
Okay,
that.
thank you. And I thought, again, I know there's been a lot of discussion about doping, and of course our policy, as any organization would be, is to encourage strict and vigilant and comprehensive anti-doping. However, we don't conduct it, and just because we don't do it doesn't mean we don't want it done, but it is within the jurisdiction and authority of our members or of our affiliates or of the ABC members to conduct anti-doping. It's not our jurisdiction or authority to do so under our rules. We do, however, respect the decision of the host commission. If somebody is disqualified because of a violation of the doping regulations, that disqualification will result in the boxer losing the fight and losing its championship. Richard? Nope. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your collegial support.